We are live. Yes, we are live as it gets for this Night of Champions 2023 post-show here live at WrestleNews 365. Appreciate you all joining in. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. The show has just gone off the air in the last couple of minutes or so, of course, live from Saudi Arabia at the Jeddah Superdome in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. A pleasant time in terms of a show airing for us over here in the UK and around the world, I guess, depending, of course, where you are. We've got a lot to get into when it comes to this post show as well, because we've got inaugural champions being crowned. We've got a brand new, I'm not going to spoil it straight away, but we've got a new World Heavyweight Champion crown. We have had titles change hands this evening, and we've had betrayal. We've had the Usos, at least one of them, turning their back on Roman Reigns. Is the bloodline, has it collapsed? Has it dissolved? Is it over? Is the dynasty finished thanks to a couple of super kicks from Jimmy Uso to Roman Reigns? Has this set up that possibly Roman Reigns could be facing his cousin once again for the Undisputed Universal Championship? Maybe at Money in the Bank. Of course, we know Roman Reigns is scheduled and advertised for Money in the Bank. What about at SummerSlam as well? Is it the beginning of the end? Is Jey Uso, is he going to be the one that will beat Roman Reigns for that championship? We'll talk about that all. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner. Remember, you can join the WN365 roster by clicking that join button, or you can go to the pinned comment in the live chat right now. You get your badges, your emojis, and your exclusive members-only content. Our members-only content's actually dropped today. The first video, we did a rewatch of the main event of Vengeance Night of Champions from 2007. John Cena versus Mick Foley versus Randy Orton versus Bobby Lashley versus King Booker for the WWE Championship. We are going to be also doing a Monday Night Wars rewatch of every single episode of Raw and Nitro throughout the Monday Night Wars throughout the 1990s. We're going to be watching that every single episode in chronological order. So if you haven't already, you can join the roster and you can watch that exclusive content. But you're here to talk about Night of Champions. We're here to discuss Night of Champions. Get your thoughts in the live chat. We'll get your comments up on the screen as always as well. For instance, like Martin B, who says, I cheered louder for Jimmy turning on Roman than I did when Sami did. What an ending. Money in the Bank is setting up nicely. As I mentioned, get your comments in. We'll get them up on the screen, as well as your super chats as well. Overall thoughts on the show. Interesting. I think they promised 3 main events. Did the 3 main events deliver? I would say the world title match probably delivered. Maybe I expected a little bit more from it. Maybe, just maybe. In terms of the other 2 main events, Brock Lesnar versus Cody, did it deliver? I would probably argue it was probably better than their Backlash match, in all honesty. Actually, it was longer as well, and I appreciated that. Main event took a while to get going, but as is everything with the Bloodline, really, it's all about the story, not necessarily the match. And certainly tonight was a big moment in this story. I mentioned at the beginning of Night of Champions that WWE post-WrestleMania has felt a little bit cold and a little bit samey and a little bit repetitive, particularly when it comes to this Bloodline story. And after WrestleMania, Roman Reigns said, we can get still more years out of this story. There's still so much story to tell, and there's still so many directions that we want to go with this, and there's still so much we want to do and say with this story. And I mentioned previously that I kind of pondered, well, what is the next chapter? What's the next chapter of this story with the Bloodline now that it wasn't Cody Rhodes winning the titles and finishing the story. It wasn't Sami Zayn defeating Roman Reigns for the undisputed WWE Universal Championship. What was the next chapter of this story? And frankly, we found it out tonight. The next chapter of this story, this saga with the Bloodline in reality, the next chapter is the Usos breaking away. And the question has always been, who is going to be the person to pin Roman Reigns? Who is going to be the person to defeat Roman Reigns? And that's not coming anytime soon. That's not coming until next year. I think the earliest is probably WrestleMania, and there could be Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns once again at WrestleMania next year. But certainly in the meantime, I think we're going to have at least Jimmy Uso facing off against Roman Reigns, possibly at Money in the Bank, and Jey Uso might also get a shot as well. Jey Uso's faced off against Roman Reigns twice. Night of Champions in 2020 and Hell in a Cell in 2020. Roman Reigns is first 2 title defenses were against his cousin, and I think we could have another one in the future as well. But we'll get to all of that in more detail as we go through. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. We've already got 32 people, 34 and rising people in here, so if you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right hand corner as well. We'll start off with the World Heavyweight Championship match. We have a brand new inaugural World Heavyweight Champion, and is none other than Seth Freakin Rollins defeating AJ Styles in the opening match of the show. The match went just over 20 minutes. And it was only an interesting one because, of course, this is a championship that is a Raw exclusive championship, and the championship, we're talking about Roman Reigns, was created because Roman Reigns holds both the WWE and the Universal Championship, and once he was drafted to SmackDown, he was exclusive to SmackDown, leaving Raw without a championship. So Triple H on Raw says this brand, this roster needs a championship. It needs a champion that's going to be defending the championship all around the world, so we're creating a World Heavyweight title, which everyone said, brilliant, we need a World Heavyweight title. It does feel somewhat secondary, but great, the World Heavyweight title is back. And then we had stars from Raw and SmackDown competing for the championship, for the right to become the inaugural champion, which felt a bit odd, certainly, didn't it? And tonight, you had Raw Seth Rollins versus SmackDown's AJ Styles, which was odd, and they never said if Styles had won it, would he go to Raw? They just didn't really explain that. It doesn't matter anyway, because Rollins, from Monday Night Raw, is the World Heavyweight Champion. Now, the closing moments of the match, after an evenly competitive match, Rollins performed a pedigree and a stomp on AJ Styles to become the first ever World Heavyweight Champion. Following the match, Triple H presented the title to Rollins. It was actually a nice way that they did this, because when Triple H turned on Seth Rollins in the summer of 2016, and he hit him with the pedigree and all that kind of stuff, and then Kevin Owens became the Universal Champion, he held the championship, the Universal Championship, in one hand, and he put out his arm to Kevin Owens with the other. And when Seth Rollins defeated AJ Styles tonight, he basically did that same pose. He had the World Heavyweight Championship in one hand, and he had his outstretched hand in the other. And it definitely felt like a moment of not only Triple H giving him the World Heavyweight Championship, but also sort of crowning him, as it were, the guy. And I think Seth Rollins is absolutely the right pick for this. This was the right outcome, not only just because why would the SmackDown guy win the Raw Championship? I mean, there's a lot of things they need to fix when it comes to the brand split that doesn't make a lot of sense, and the fallout from the draft of having Raw champions on SmackDown and SmackDown champions on Raw. They need to fix all of that, and certainly they did not need to make this even more complicated when it came to a SmackDown star holding the Raw World Championship. They just didn't need to do that at all. So that was the right thing. In terms of the perception that this is a secondary title, the fact that it opened the show didn't help. I mean, you've got AJ Styles recently doing an interview, don't you, by saying it's hard not to feel like this is a secondary championship because its creation, its inception is because they can't get the belts off Roman Reigns, and they've backed themselves so much into a corner creatively that they don't want Roman Reigns to lose. They don't want to have Roman Reigns just give up a title because that makes the title feel secondary. So the best course of action in their mind is create a championship, but you should start as you mean to go on, I think, certainly. And there certainly would have been an argument to say, well, this should main event the show. Now, in retrospect now, I can understand why they didn't main event the show with this World Championship match, because probably from their point of view, they've got a major angle. I mean, this show closed on a major angle. Jimmy Uso said, I've had enough with Roman Reigns. Jimmy Uso turned his back on Roman Reigns. Jimmy Uso attacked Roman Reigns. He hit him with not one, but 2 super kicks, and Roman Reigns lost. He didn't get pinned, obviously. That was Solo that took the pinfall. But the point being is a major angle closed this show, and I think they probably thought, you know what? If we weren't doing this big angle on this show, the World Heavyweight Championship would have probably main evented, and for all intents and purposes, it probably should main evented the show. But in reality, with the angle, we needed to go with that, so they decided to open the show instead. There had been reports as well that because of Seth Rollins' filming commitments at the moment, of course, we do know that he's going to be starring in Captain America New World Order, Captain America 4 in the MCU. He's going to be playing part of the Serpent Society in that film. There have been pictures of him on set. There had been reports that maybe he needed to leave early as well to go back to set. I don't know how true that is, because there was a backstage promo that he did later on in the show with Byron Saxton, which looked like it was live. It might not have been. It might have been recorded straight after and then played later on. But I thought the match was fine. Maybe didn't reach the expectations I truly had for it. I did think there were matches on the show that were better. I think that thing is, with Seth Rollins and AJ Styles, the expectations are always going to be so high. I felt that there were a couple of clunky moments throughout, a couple of botches. Maybe sometimes it was zigging when they were zagging and it didn't go completely to plan. But there were some really nice spots in it as well. You had Seth Rollins do the dive to the outside, and then seemingly he hurt his knee, and then AJ Styles kept working on his knee throughout the match, went for the calf crusher a couple of times as well. There was a spot where I don't know if Rollins intended to do the stomp on AJ Styles' hand or wrist or something like that, or AJ was meant to move. I don't know what that was, but in the end, Rollins gets the victory. And as I said, it is the right call. In my opinion, it's the right call. It's Rollins, the Raw guy, needs to win the championship, and I think, frankly, throughout this entire Roman Reigns undisputed WWE World Heavyweight Championship reign, Universal Championship reign rather, there's been this sort of feeling that, man, Seth Rollins deserves a world championship. Think of the great work this guy has been doing for such a long period of time. I'm talking going back to the summer of 2021, his feud with Edge, and then that turned into a feud with Roman Reigns, which Rollins didn't lose, and then his feud with Cody Rhodes, and then his babyface turn as well, and obviously the work he was doing in the United States Championship picture scene last year with Bobby Lashley and Austin Theory. He's just been killing it. And obviously then his match with Logan Paul at WrestleMania, that he's just consistently been knocking it out of the park, and he really has been spearheading and leading that Raw brand in lieu of having a regular world champion. So it should be Seth Rollins. And there are so many opponents that he could face on Raw, whether it be a match against Cody Rhodes, which that needs to be revisited at some point. It was teased a few weeks ago again. Because, of course, when Cody Rhodes was written out of storyline because of his torn pec, Seth Rollins attacked him with a sledgehammer. So they need to go back to that. You can have him face off against Gunther. Shinsuke Nakamura's on Raw as well. Drew McIntyre could come back as a heel, which I think some people are expecting could happen. So it was the right call, right outcome. And I think what they need to do now is they need to have premium live events main evented with this championship. The problem is that Roman Reigns is scheduled for the next two premium live events. He's scheduled for Money in the Bank. He's advertised for it over here in London, in the UK. So Roman will main event that show. SummerSlam. It's one of the biggest events of the year. Ford Field. Roman Reigns will main event that show. So maybe you're looking until sort of September time that maybe Seth Rollins main events, but that September premium live event is speculated to be the Indian premium live event as well. And one would think, given it's an international one again, that maybe Roman might be advertised for that show, but given the limited dates that Roman Reigns has, maybe at that point he's not going to be on that show. And then if that is the case, that's when Seth Rollins should be main eventing. We need to get some main events in with this World Heavyweight Championship, and we need to build Raw around this World Heavyweight Champion, which I think they're going to do. So I enjoyed this match. Probably wasn't the match of the show for me, but certainly was a good match, and I enjoyed it. And again, it was certainly the right call. Seth Rollins winning that one is the correct decision, certainly. And Seth Rollins is the inaugural World Heavyweight Champion in the process. We've got nearly 50 people watching, so if you haven't already, click the like button. Be sure to subscribe as well, bottom right hand corner. Let's do a quick subscriber check, actually. We are currently at 11,286. We are only 14 subscribers away from the target today, which was 11,300. So if you haven't already, subscribe, bottom right hand corner. As I mentioned, only 14 away, and be sure to click the like button. Let's see if we can get to 50 likes. That's the target. I mean, there's 50 people watching, so if we can get to 50 likes, that would be amazing, absolutely. SJ, one of the mods, says nice thumbnail. What's that now? Says triple threat for the tag team titles, KO and Sami, Usos, and Roman and Solo. That's possible. Martin B says think back to Hell in a Cell back in 2020. The scene being Jimmy covering Jay to protect him. The story is really coming full circle. Well, certainly it's the next chapter of this story, no doubt about that. Next match was the match between Trish Stratus and Becky Lynch. Now, I don't know if there's been an update on Becky Lynch since this, but Becky Lynch at the end of this match had one hell of a bloody nose, an absolutely smashed up nose. I don't know if she's got a broken nose, I don't know what it was, but her face was pretty mangled, it must be said. Now, Trish Stratus wins this one. The WWE Hall of Famer comes out victorious with the help of none other than recent call-up to the main roster, former NXT star Zoe Stark. Now, what happened was Trish Stratus was on the outside of the ring, with Becky Lynch, and Trish is trying to crawl. She's trying to crawl under the ring apron. She's trying to crawl under the ring, and Becky Lynch prevents that from happening. Trish is thrown back in the ring, and the camera stays on the outside, watching Becky get back in, and kind of a certain angle where the ring apron and under the ring is visible, so you're thinking something's going to happen. So as Trish is in the ring, she distracts the referee. Out comes none other than Zoe Stark. Zoe Stark comes out and hits the Z360 rather. Now, again, at this point, this is when I'm not sure if Becky Lynch breaks her nose or does something. I'm not sure about it, because the move itself is kind of a flip over into a knee, and she could have got a knee to the face. I don't know. But then it's followed up by a Stratusfaction, and if you do look upon the replay, obviously the Stratusfaction move is the springboard by Trish off the top rope into the Bulldog, and it does kind of look like that when Becky Lynch's face hits the canvas or hits the mat, it does look like she kind of hits her nose up against the canvas, like it's not all the way down. So it might have been then, but either way, after the match, I mean, they didn't cut to Becky Lynch's face that much afterwards, because again, it was all kind of messed up, all kind of crazed up. She was really, really bleeding out her nose quite significantly, and again, I don't know if that's going to be a broken nose. If that is the case, that would imply she might be out of action for a little while. Not too long, but broken nose is a weird one. Sometimes they require a lot more work than just being reset or something like that. I was always predicting going into this one, I thought Trish would win, because we've heard and seen lots of reports to suggest that, no, this is not going to be a one and done thing. This isn't Trish coming in just to work a Saudi show, get a big payday. She's in this for the long haul. She's in this for the long term. And frankly, we had heard that even prior to WrestleMania, hadn't we? We heard that prior to WrestleMania, that Trish was coming back, and she was coming back to work this really long storyline, this long-term storyline. So we knew that we were probably going to get Trish versus Becky 2 at SummerSlam, and if that is the case, you don't have the babyface beat the heel in their first match and just kind of, well, where'd you go from there? That's kind of it. No, you don't do that, do you? So Trish, I always felt, was going to win. My concern was, how do they get longevity out of this? How do they stretch this out a certain distance? Because it already feels like it's been going on for a while, and to be fair to WWE, this is how they stretch out. This is how they make it go the distance, because they add someone else into it. They add in a new person, they add in a new factor, and they can go many different ways coming out of this. So now what you've got is you've got a protege of Trish. You've got someone that Becky can feud with on a week-to-week basis, so Trish doesn't have to be at every single episode of Raw. You've got someone that Becky Lynch can face off again in singles action, maybe at the Money in the Bank or something like that. And also, and I guess more importantly, you've got a tag team partner for Trish. And the reason why that's important is because how did Trish turn on Becky Lynch in the first place? She was her tag team partner, and they lost the Women's Tag Team Championships. How and why was Trish defending the Tag Team Championships at the time? Because Lita was taken out. It was later revealed that Trish had taken out Lita herself, her former best friend. So I think, you've got quite a few directions you can go in this one. Most likely, you're probably going to get Becky and Lita versus Trish and Zoe Stark. And frankly, for Zoe Stark, what a position that's in for her. Just called up to the main roster, then you're involved in a program with 2 Hall of Famers and one of the biggest female stars in company history. That's not bad going, and if anything, that says quite a lot about how highly they rate and how highly they view and see Zoe Stark. I think that's an excellent position for her. So, at Money in the Bank, and again, maybe this would depend on how severe possibly, the nose or the face would be with Becky Lynch. You can either have Becky versus Zoe, which they might go, but I think the bigger match, particularly for a London crowd, for a UK crowd, would be Trish and Zoe Stark versus Lita and Becky Lynch. That's quite a big match. And also as well, you can have a situation where the Women's Tag Team Championships, they're being determined on Raw on Monday. You've got that 4-way match that I think people are expecting Ronda Rousey and Shayna Baszler to win, but there have been reports that Ronda Rousey, she might be going on another break from WWE TV. And if that is the case, you've just established a new tag team. And let's face it, the tag teams in the women's division are hardly premium, and they're hardly big. And Zoe Stark and Trish Stratus are just as established as any tag team now. The fact that they've come together this evening. So maybe it'll be a situation where Trish and Zoe, last minute, they just say, we're going to win those tag team titles. They win the titles, and then you've got Lita and Becky chasing those tag team titles at Money in the Bank, and then you get into SummerSlam, and that's when you have Trish versus Becky 2 or something like that. And also as well, we could be getting into a situation where you could do Trish versus Lita again. As I mentioned, now that you've added Zoe Stark into this, I think they freshened it up. And I think they've added in these different directions that the story can go in and a better story to tell. Because you do have questions coming out of this. Why is Zoe Stark with Trish? Why does she have an issue with Becky Lynch? Like, there's lots of different ways to go with that. And I think, again, that's the right call. They've managed to stretch this out the right way, and they've added, I think, a good injection into this one. So I think that was the right call. What's that now says? Look forward to WWE explaining a longer recovery time for a broken nose over a broken arm. Well, of course, yeah, with Cody Rhodes resting this evening. And Just Kevin says this is perfect for Zoe Stark. Be sure to smash a like, as I mentioned. We're halfway there to 50 likes. We've already got 25 likes, over 40 people watching. So if you haven't already, click that like button and be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Next match was the Intercontinental Championship. Der Inaugural. Gunther retains, defends against Mustafa Ali, as one would expect. Honestly, I still have yet to find a Gunther premium live event match that I don't enjoy. And this match went just over 8 minutes. It wasn't a long match. It wasn't a squash by any sense of the imagination or anything like that. But honestly, it must be said that I haven't seen a premium live event match by Gunther that I didn't like, because when it comes to these kind of matches, he just always delivers. And this wasn't, akin to the Sheamus match at Clash at the Castle. This wasn't akin to him facing Sheamus and Drew McIntyre at WrestleMania or anything like that. But they're just good. And yeah, I never at one point believed that Mustafa Ali was going to win the match. They did some spots with some 450 splashes and all that kind of stuff. But again, it's a very simple story that they told in this one. Mustafa Ali's the underdog, and basically it's a case of this guy ain't going to win. Gunther has not been beaten since he debuted on the main roster. He's going to be the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion in history. We all know that's going to be the case. He's going to break the record of the Honky Tonk Man. He's closing in on the Macho Man Randy Savage's second longest reign in WWE history, as he should, I think. And the story of the match was, could there just be one moment where Ali comes close? And that's what they did, 450 splash. But they needed to make sure that it wasn't long, because it shouldn't have been a long match. It can't be a back and forth 50-50 kind of deal. It should be no. Ali might get lucky, and he might have one shot. Can he take it? And even that one shot might not be good enough. And that's what it was. Gunther just basically beat the hell out of him, and eventually power bombs him, gets the victory. But it's just the overall presentation. I mean, we did a report recently here on the channel where I think it was PW Insider, Mike Johnson from PW Insider, reported that in terms of the listing of the top heels and baby faces on the Raw roster, Gunther was listed as the top heel, as he should. For me, he's the top heel. I mean, Roman Reigns is the top heel in WWE, but this is why Gunther needed to be actually moved from SmackDown to Raw, because he shouldn't be facing Roman Reigns, not yet, certainly, but as long as you're on the same show as Roman Reigns, you're always going to be in his shadow. And by going to Raw, he gets out of his shadow, and that's why I was also so excited about the creation of the World Heavyweight Championship, because I said to myself, Gunther's going to be a world champion. With Roman Reigns and how long his reign is, you do sort of say to yourself, when is Roman going to drop the championship? Who is he going to drop it to, etc., etc. Now with that World Heavyweight title on Raw, you go, at some point, I would argue within the next year, within the next 12 months, Gunther will be the World Heavyweight Champion. I have no doubt in my mind. Now, I think it's the end of the year that Gunther has to get to be the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion in history. And again, he will get that. He will get that. I have no doubt in my mind, especially when they've come this far. And maybe they might do a match where it is, say, winner take all. You're kind of worried about getting in those positions like they did with Roman Reigns, but when you have Gunther versus Seth Rollins, that's a money match. That should be main event in a pay-per-view, a premium live event, excuse me. And there have been reports recently that WWE, in addition to having a long-term plan of possibly Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes once again at WrestleMania, possibly next year in Philadelphia, another thing that had been considered was Cody Rhodes versus Gunther. And, you've got all of these matches for Gunther on Raw, whether it's Gunther versus Cody, Gunther versus Seth Rollins, Gunther versus Brock, which they teased at the Royal Rumble, and when they teased it at the Rumble, the crowd went crazy for it. Because again, it's a money match. Because every single time he's on pay-per-view, he delivers, and the matches just feel big. And I think that's the thing I like about him the most, is that in this day and age in pro wrestling, and I love the variety in pro wrestling. I think that's what makes it so unique, is there is something for everyone. I know that's cliche, but in terms of match types and in-ring performers, there is something for everyone. There's high flyers, there's submission wrestlers, there's whatever you want. There's cinematic now. There's your Bray Wyatts, which is basically, sort of nothing in terms of wrestling, more on storytelling and cinema almost. But what I like about Gunther is I believe. And that's the most difficult thing as a wrestling fan, is to suspension of disbelief. It's like when you're watching a film. When you're watching a Marvel film, you know what you're watching isn't real. You know that there isn't a giant purple man who's putting space stones in this giant gold glove and can click his fingers and eradicate half of the universe. You know that's not real. But if the performance and the CGI and the cinematography is good enough, then you forget. You have a suspension of disbelief. It's not too much of a leap, and you can watch it and you can buy in and you can believe. And I make that comparison when it comes to Gunther, because when I watch his matches, I believe. The suspension of disbelief isn't that much. The stuff looks real. I'm not seeing people hold each other up. I'm not seeing people wait for the dive. And again, I don't mind that, because I appreciate the athleticism, and if shot correctly and if the composition is good enough, then it works. But Gunther, I just believe everything he does. Everything looks snug. Everything looks real. He dominates people. When he's vulnerable, he sells. And I just think he's fantastic. He's probably my favorite person in WWE today to watch, because particularly in these premium live event matches, because he makes matches feel big, he makes them feel real, and they have that big fight feel to them. And I just don't know if that can be taught, and he certainly, from a creative point of view, needs to be protected, I think. But I thought his match against Mustafa Ali tonight, whilst not his best premium live event match, I thought it was excellent. Now, one of the most surprising outcomes of the evening is that we have a brand new Raw Women's Champion. Bianca Belair is no longer the WWE Raw Women's Champion, as she was defeated by Asuka. Maybe arguably the most surprising outcome actually of the evening. Now, obviously the story going into this one was about what? The Mist. It was all about the Mist. The Mist. We had Mist. She was misted in her hometown of Knoxville, Tennessee, when she was celebrating on SmackDown by Asuka, and then a few weeks later she was nearly missed by Asuka once again. Bianca Belair just kind of missed, or sort of just a little bit got in her eyes. So the story going into this one this evening was, when is Asuka going to miss Bianca Belair, and does she have a plan for the Mist? As far as the match itself, actually, I thought it was kind of clunky, honestly. I didn't think it was the best match they had. I thought their WrestleMania match was far superior to this one, and certain moments didn't just click. I felt that at points it felt like Bianca Belair was going through the match at like half speed or 3/4 speed. Stuff just didn't kind of click, I think, for whatever reason. And it did pique my interest, because when Asuka came out, I noticed that she had all of this tape on her hand, and I just assumed at the time, oh, maybe she's got an injured hand or something like that. But I should have been wiser, because if you're a wrestling fan, if you've seen, people like the Great Muta and all that kind of stuff, they always have the fingers taped up and the hands taped up. And it's not just the mist from the mouth to the eyes you have to watch about. You have to watch the mist to the hand, because they've done it for years. They've done a variation of the Iron Claw, where it's the mist into the hands and then it's the claw over the face. And it's another way of getting the mist into the face. And that's what they did in this match. Asuka went for the mist to Bianca Belair, and she missed the mist. And they kind of played up on commentary of, oh, that was her chance, that was her opportunity. But that missing of the mist was really a red herring. That was to make the viewer or the people in the audience believe, oh, she's run out of mist because she's done it once, she's not going to do it again. And the way that they shot the finish was very smart. Bianca had, the referee tied up, and once again, she misted her hands. And it was quite a cool actual visual of the way she did it. She just sprayed it over her fingers and sort of literally licked her fingers at points. And because she had the tape on her hands, she had the white parts that you could see the blue mist once again. Bianca gets her up for the KOD. Asuka puts the hand with the mist over her face into her eyes, not only raking the eyes and getting her fingers in her eyes, but getting, most importantly, the mist into the eyes of Bianca Belair as well. Then hits a kick to the head, and we got a brand new Raw Women's Champion. So I like the finish. I like that Bianca drops the championship. I just feel like what is there left in this title reign? There didn't need to be anything else. She hit the time of being a year. She hit, was it 400 days? She's the longest reigning women's champion of the modern era. She did that by winning at Backlash. So there was nothing else left for her to do. It was the right time. The only thing, again, I would say about this, and I mentioned it earlier on, is that they need to change this title name. It's the Raw Women's Championship, but there were two SmackDown superstars competing for the title. So unless they're going to do this swap, which I wasn't a fan of before, they can't just ignore it. You can't just have a Raw Women's Champion just be on SmackDown forever. If they want to get away from this issue in the future, they just need to do what they did back in the day. This is why I don't understand why it's so complicated for them. What they did back in the day is they had basically the same championships on both shows, but they were just called something different. When it came to the tag team championships, you had the World Tag Team Championships on Raw, and you had the WWE Tag Team Championships on SmackDown. You had the United States Championship on either Raw or SmackDown, and then you had the Intercontinental Championship on the other show. You had the WWE Championship, and you had the World Heavyweight Championship. So that when people were drafted, you could just swap stuff over. It wasn't a big issue. So they need to do that with the Women's Championship. They need to have a WWE Women's Championship, and they need to have a WWE World Women's Championship, or something like that. You know, maybe that's a bit too close for the names, but they need to just do something like that. So just to get rid of this Raw and SmackDown, I don't know, association with the titles, because from the outset, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. And it feels to me like, unless they've got some grand plan, it just feels like they're not sure how to get around it. It's like they don't want to do that title swap, which I think is right, but they also don't know how they're going to get around this one. But then you would say to yourself, but you drafted these people to these brands, so surely wouldn't you have had a plan? Wouldn't you have had a contingency plan? Or if you put the title on these people, like when you put the title on Rhea Ripley as the SmackDown Women's Champion, wouldn't you know you were going to draft her to Raw just a few weeks later? Again, that doesn't make, a lot of it doesn't make a lot of sense, realistically. So, yes, that whole aspect of this must be said, is very strange. But again, in terms of this match, I didn't think it was the most amazing match, it must be said, but I appreciated the finish, and I think it's the right move to get the title off Bianca Belair. Now, SmackDown Women's Championship, not much to say about this one. When I was doing my prediction and my preview about it, when we started the watch along, I said, well, not much to say. And there's not much to say afterwards, because the match lasted 70 seconds. 7-0. That's how long this match lasted. Rhea Ripley retains the SmackDown Women's Championship. She was always going to retain the SmackDown Women's Championship against Natalya. Everyone always knew that was going to happen, it must be said. But at the same time, it was very, very, very quick. And essentially, the bell rang. Dominic Mysterio was talking smack to Natalya. Rhea Ripley pushed Natalya out of the ring, threw her into the steel steps a couple of times, hits the Riptide, 1, 2, 3, game over. And this did feel like a match where it was just, we need to have more title matches on the show because it's called Night of Champions. We don't have every title being defended. The US Championship was defended on SmackDown. The Undisputed Universal Championship was not on the line. So I guess we need title matches. So Rhea Ripley, you're going to face Natalya. Who can we have Rhea Ripley beat in 70 seconds and no one really care that much about? Natalya. And that's what they did. So not really much to say about this one. Then we get into Cody Rhodes versus Brock Lesnar 2. Match didn't go 10 minutes. It lasted 9 minutes 40. And Brock Lesnar defeats Cody Rhodes. Now, after a well-fought contest, Lesnar performed the Kimura lock for the victory on Rhodes, who passed out due to the pain. Of course, the story going into this one is that Cody had the broken arm, and it was he was advised, don't compete, don't compete, don't compete. He did compete with the broken arm, and once any wrestler goes into a match with a cast on, it's going to be used as a weapon. And that's what happened in this one. He realized, I can hit Brock Lesnar with this cast. And Michael Cole on commentary, and this is when I get into, I don't care if people are saying that Vince McMahon wasn't in Saudi Arabia, or he's not in creative control, he's not constantly. Some of the words that Michael Cole were using tonight felt like it was coming straight from the mouth of Vince McMahon, and I will not be convinced otherwise, honestly, because Michael Cole did everything in his power on commentary to make you think that Cody Rhodes was essentially the Hulk on commentary. I mean, he really, really did. He was saying Cody Rhodes is superhuman. Cody Rhodes is not human. Cody Rhodes is incredible. Cody Rhodes, I mean, the moment the bell rang, Michael Cole straight away said, Cody Rhodes didn't tap out, he passed out. Cody Rhodes is incredible. Cody Rhodes this, Cody Rhodes that. So Brock gets his win back. I mentioned this going into it. The whole reason they did the Cody Rhodes broken arm angle was because they knew Brock's got to win. And we've got to extend this out. We can't beat Brock twice. So we need to have a way out to protect Cody. They protected the hell out of him. Brock wins. We will have a rematch. Now, Cody Rhodes is rumored to be in the Money in the Bank ladder match. So with this broken arm that they had coming into it, that was clearly aggravated even worse. He should not be in the Money in the Bank ladder match in 4 weeks' time. I think they'll find a way to get him into that match, but again, to me, that makes no sense. I mean, I enjoyed the match. I mean, it's going to sound like I'm moaning. I'm not moaning about the match. I enjoyed the match. I thought it was well done. I thought the drama in it, again, was well done. Brock sold, which, the moment Brock Lesnar sells anything, I think it turns into a good match. It wasn't one-sided. But just parts of it, I just felt, again, were a bit too just heavy-handed. I mean, Brock Lesnar, we're meant to believe Brock Lesnar broke Cody Rhodes' arm by smashing him with a thing on Raw, and they locked in the Kimura, he broke it. Cody Rhodes must have been in for 9 minutes and 40 seconds of this match. Cody Rhodes must have been in that Kimura lock for at least 3 or 4 minutes. And that was part of the finish, is that he passed out because of the pain. And it just, that's when I talked earlier on about Gunther and suspension of disbelief. That's when I go, I'm not believing this as much. I'm not believing all of that. And again, I felt, and maybe this is what it's like to be sort of a seasoned wrestling viewer, but you can tell when you're being told what to think. You're being told to believe a certain thing. You're being told, this guy's amazing. This guy is superhuman. This guy, feel bad for this guy. This guy's incredible. This guy. And I think they need to be really careful with that, WWE, because the moment you go over that line of sort of forcing things down people's throats and telling them you have to think this way, that's when they turn. And I think they've been really good with Cody Rhodes so far about the crowd are on his side. They sing his intro. They believe in him. They like him. They really liked him heading into WrestleMania season. Obviously came back, won the Rumble. And with the Sami Zayn stuff going on at the time, that could have gone a different way. But they managed that very well, very delicately. They got Sami involved and did promos with Cody. That worked. They got Paul Heyman involved. That worked. But they need to be careful with this Brock stuff. As I mentioned, that you can't keep telling people this guy's superhuman, this guy's Superman, this guy's incredible. I think they need to be careful with that. But clearly we're moving towards Brock versus Cody 3. That's probably going to take place at SummerSlam. As for what Cody does next, again, I don't know. He shouldn't be in the Money in the Bank ladder match, but I think he will be, in all honesty. So again, that's going to be really interesting to see where they go with that. And finally, we had a main event, which was for the Tag Team Championships, the Undisputed Tag Team Championships. Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn retaining their titles against the Bloodline, that being the Undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns, celebrating 1,000 days as champion, teaming up with Solo Sikoa. Now, again, it was pretty obvious where this story was going, because if you watched SmackDown last night, or if you've been watching SmackDown it's coming out of WrestleMania really, the story has been that the Usos are not on firm footing with Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns is pissed off with Jimmy and Jey Usos. They lost the championships at WrestleMania, embarrassing the Bloodline in his mind. They then lost the rematch, further embarrassing the Bloodline. And they've started to get involved in things that Roman Reigns doesn't want them involved in. And Roman Reigns has been annoyed and furious with them. So have that in the back of your mind, because everyone kind of knew, okay, that's where we're going in terms of the finish for this one. That's where we're going in terms of the outcome for this one. There was a lot of hype and circumstance going into it. Of course, Sami Zayn hasn't competed in Saudi Arabia since the deal with WWE and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was put together in 2018 because of the tensions between the KSA and the Syrian government. Those tensions have been eased and smoothed over. Diplomatic missions have resumed between the two parties over the last couple of months. Hence, Sami Zayn is able to actually compete in the Middle East. He's of Syrian descent. He's of Middle Eastern descent. He speaks Arabic. He came out in a throbe. It was a magical moment. Kevin Owens hasn't wrestled in in Saudi since the greatest Royal Rumble in 2018 out of solidarity for his best friend. And they were both there. And as one would expect, Sami Zayn was the most popular babyface on the show. He was absolutely adored. And it's kind of funny, isn't it, in retrospect of that narrative about they couldn't put the title on Sami Zayn because what about the Saudi Arabia stuff? Like, blah, blah, blah. Guy's most popular guy in Saudi Arabia on the show tonight. So, no, you can put the title on Sami Zayn if you wanted to, but they didn't want to. That's something to consider. So, back and forth match, and we have a ref bump. It's not a Roman Reigns match, frankly, without a ref bump. Bear in mind, this was Roman Reigns' first match since WrestleMania Night 2, where he defeated Cody Rhodes. How did he defeat Cody Rhodes? There was a ref bump. And Solo Sikoa got involved. So the moment that there was a ref bump, Roman Reigns spears the referee, I thought, here we go. Because we've seen this a lot. There's a lot of ref bumps in Roman Reigns matches. The Usos come out. We had a moment where Kevin Owens looked like he was going to put Roman Reigns through an announce table. The Usos come out. They attack Kevin Owens. They get in the ring. It looks like they attack Sami Zayn. They go for a pair of super kicks. Sami Zayn ducks, hits Solo Sikoa. Solo's down. They're thinking, what is going on? I can't believe what we've done. What is going on? Roman Reigns then gets in the ring, and he's on the outside actually initially, and he sees that they've accidentally super kicked Solo Sikoa, and he looks furious. He's saying, what are you doing here? I told you not to be here. You've disobeyed me again, and now you've super kicked your own brother. Are you trying to ruin me? Are you trying to turn on me? What are you doing? Roman Reigns is furious. He pie faces Jey Uso. He pie faces Jimmy Uso, and Jimmy Uso says, F this, and super kicks Roman Reigns. Crowd goes crazy. Absolutely crazy, because they're thinking, wow, finally, after months of being berated, weeks of being berated by Roman Reigns, Jimmy Uso's had enough. He said, I'm not dealing with it anymore. I am sick of this. I'm not doing it anymore. So Roman Reigns, this first super kick has kind of just stunned him a little bit. He's on his knees. He's thinking, what have you done? What? He's trying to sort of process what's happened. Jey Uso saying to his brother, what have you done? Why are you doing this? What are you doing? And Jimmy Uso looks at him and says, I'm doing something that you should have done a long time ago. It's not about him. It's about you and I. And says, I'm going to do it again. Bang! Hits him with another super kick. He goes down. Jimmy Uso saying, what on earth are you doing? He says, got to get out of here. Get out of here. Get out of here. They get out of there. They run up the entrance ramp, and then they're sitting at the top of the stage. And Jimmy's like, yeah, I'm glad I've done that. Jay's thinking, what have you done? That wasn't me. Now, because now in the future, he's got a decision to make. That's his brother. That wasn't him. And in actuality, it's always the people around him that's turning on Roman Reigns. It was Sami Zayn that turned on Roman Reigns at the Royal Rumble. And Jey Uso left. And for weeks and weeks of speculation, it's Jey with the Bloodline, isn't he? With the Bloodline, he came back. Now it's Jimmy. Jimmy's turned on Roman Reigns, but not Jey. And Jay's like, what is going on? I can't believe this is happening. What's going on? This is crazy. And then it leads to, obviously, Sami Zayn gets back in the ring. Solo Sikoa's in there. Haluva kick, stunner. 1, 2, 3. Sami Zayn and Kevin Owens get the victory. They retain the tag team championship. So as I mentioned, the next chapter, very clearly, in this Bloodline saga in WWE is the dissolution of the Usos and what happens with them. And we have had an Uso challenge for the championship during this story. It was Jey Uso. He was Roman Reigns' first challenger at Night of Champions. The next match they had was at Hell in a Cell, and Jimmy Uso was involved in that. At the time, he was coming back from injury, and it was Roman Reigns who locked on the guillotine onto Jimmy Uso. It was an I Quit match inside of a Hell in a Cell, and Jey said, I quit to protect his brother. And that was over 3 years ago, or nearly 3 years ago. I think it was October of 2020. So I think what we could be going towards now, Money in the Bank, which Roman Reigns is advertised for, we could have Jimmy Uso versus Roman Reigns in that main event. And then heading into SummerSlam, we could have Jey Uso once again versus Roman Reigns. I think that might be the direction that we're heading in. And that could be the moment where the Usos are done with Roman Reigns. It could be a situation where it's Reigns defeats Jimmy at Money in the Bank. Then Reigns faces Jey once again at SummerSlam. And some people might argue that's the moment to beat Reigns. I don't think it will. I don't think it will be the time that Roman Reigns loses the championship or anything like that. But that could be the moment, certainly. I don't think that'll be the moment. I think that'll be the order the matches would go in. We could have a situation where we really have Reigns facing off against all of the Usos. You could have Reigns versus Jimmy at Money in the Bank. You could have Reigns versus Jay at SummerSlam. And then you could have Reigns possibly versus Solo in September, or possibly even later than that. Because again, I don't think Reigns is going to be doing every premium live event this year. And he's definitely advertised for Money in the Bank and SummerSlam. But after that, he might take some time off. There have been rumors that we might not then see him until, let's say, maybe Survivor Series. It might even be that long, realistically. So that's going to be interesting. But certainly the next chapter of this, as we get in towards the end of the year, we're halfway through the year, I think the next 6 months are going to be one by one, or certainly the story for the summer anyway, is going to be Roman Reigns facing his cousins. And whilst he built up the bloodline, he brought in Jay, and then he brought in Jimmy, and then he brought in Solo, and he brought in Sami. This year it's about facing these members as they eventually leave. Beat Sami, beat Jimmy, beat Jay, and beat Solo. That's what's been teased. He also said previously to Solo that there were more Usos out there. As far as I'm aware, there are no more Usos under contract to WWE. I know in MLW there's Jacob Fatu, and there are other family members, but I don't think they're ready yet for that role. It had also been reported by, I think it was Dave Meltzer, that the ultimate goal for Roman Reigns and his story was to once again face Cody Rhodes at WrestleMania next year. And frankly as well, they've not given up on The Rock. They haven't. I know that people might roll their eyes now when they think about, The Rock. We heard enough of that last year, and we did. We've heard enough about that for several years, of that Rock match and all that nonsense surrounding The Rock possibly facing Roman Reigns and what have you. But it's WrestleMania 40. I mean, they even consider facing Steve Austin again. They offered Steve Austin to face Roman Reigns at WrestleMania, and Steve Austin said no because he didn't know his schedule. He knows his schedule, as far as I'm aware, for Philadelphia next year, so that one's not off the table as well. So my long-winded point here is that Roman Reigns isn't dropping his championship anytime soon. Minimum's next year at WrestleMania, and let's face it, if he's facing Stone Cold, he's definitely not dropping the championship. But this is the next step. And again, that's very, very interesting. Very curious, certainly. So there you go, guys. That's the post-show review. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe, bottom right-hand corner. Let me know your thoughts on the show in the comment section below. As I mentioned, we will be back tomorrow doing news videos coming out of this show. Certainly, we'll get some backstage reactions, some news. We will be live once again for AEW Double or Nothing tomorrow, doing a watch-along for that and a post-show for that too. Remember, you can join the WN365 roster. Links in the video description. It's also the pinned comment. So you can join us for these what we call them, match rewatches. I'll get there eventually, and that's going to be a lot of fun as well. So appreciate everyone that's joined me this evening, and I'll speak to you again very, very soon. Peace. Hey guys, thank you for watching, listening, streaming, or however you come across this video today. Be sure to click on the video on the right there to watch our next video, or click the bottom there to subscribe, or the bottom right hand corner. Thank you very much, and I'll speak to you again very soon.